too much. Sometimes they bite off more than they can chew, wanting to present stuff to folks around here. Now, continuing here with the news, before we get to this with David Knight and with Rob Dube, I want to talk about the info war itself. Notice yesterday we have a leading gentleman on who's dealing with taking these food deserts, these food prisons, these areas with all of this right-of-way and city area in front of the yards, and letting people, by getting laws passed, by just doing it at first, forcing the tyrants to try to arrest you, then pointing out it's tyranny, then getting the law changed, to plant gardens in basically your front yards. Wow, what a free country. We can do that. And to use unused public lands. Ron Finley. Today, we're battling the UN treaties and the TPP treaties to go after the Second Amendment. We're battling their stealth attacks. Then we have a guest on exposing the program to execute dogs during police encounters. Just because they're not in control of the situation, the dog won't shut up, and so it has to die. You ask questions, you have to be tasered. This pain compliance, torture compliance, this conversion to a tyranny. And now we're going to be covering Jade Helm and how that ties into the bigger picture. This is a precious operation, and I know you know that. I wake up every morning, and I go to bed every night as well, and just remind myself, hey, keep your nose clean, do a really good job, focus on what you're doing, be productive, be accurate, be truthful, check your ego at the door, and realize you're part of something big. And all of you, the listeners and viewers, are part of something really, really big as well. Because the globalists are all about making us feel calm while they anesthetize us, while they basically dismantle our culture, our society. But you read their books and white papers and statements, I mean, they are exterminists, transhumanists, eugenicists, the nastiest, most cold-hearted psychopaths you can imagine. David Knight was just pointing out earlier that, you know, it's psychopaths that like to hurt little animals. I mean, it's one thing, you know, but then they extend it and say gutting a deer is psychopathic, or putting a hook in a, you know, or taking a hook out of a fish's mouth is psychopathic. No, that's just farming. That's just hunting. But people that like to torture animals, you know, George W. Bush liked to put firecrackers in the mouths of frogs and blow them up live. And I remember I'd see kids doing stuff like that when I was a kid, and I was kind of like, you know, I don't like, that's a living frog. You know, I think that's gross. And it wasn't like I was some bleeding heart. It's just that I had empathy. And they want us to have a lack of empathy, so that when we see our neighbor being drug off, or the CPS taking somebody's kids, or the globalists restricting somebody else's free speech, we just keep our head down like gazelles and hope that the lions will get another animal. Or like a deer in the forest of India, we hope the tiger just grabs one of the other deer and, you know, it's going to be us tomorrow, but so what? We're not prey animals like cotton-tailed rabbits. We are not domesticated idiots. But they're trying to make us behave and act like that. And I don't care if in the military, the police, corporate systems, whatever, there's cultures. And there is a culture of oppression, a culture of hive dronism that's going on to make us conform into different controlled groups and organizations. And it's time for us to break free of that. You don't have to subscribe or prescribe to what we're saying. Simply know, on every historical yardstick measurement, if we had dials in front of us, they'd all be pegged, red alert, the ship's on fire, the ship's sinking. Tyranny is racing because of technology. We can also use technology to fight tyranny. But more importantly, we're fighting complacency, the acclimation, the normalcy bias, the learned helplessness. We really do have a mass Stockholm syndrome worldwide, where we identify and begin to submit to our oppressors. Now, the globalists then play the other end of that, and we are becoming oppressed. We are being tyrannized. So then they sell mindless burning and shooting not against the actual rulers, the controllers, but against local systems that aren't even fully controlled by them yet, then in the name of reforming them, they're going to come in and take them over and bring you something 10 times worse. And so in that, we need to appeal to the noble side of bureaucrats, police, ourselves, corporate people, business people, and demand the change we want to see on what restaurants serve, on what grocery stores sell, on the policies, on how the CPS behaves. We're going to get more done challenging them and showing them how they're being manipulated, because most people are just busy, they're under peer pressure, they're following a narrative. They don't have any honor. And it's not that they're dishonorable because they're innately dishonorable. They've been moving too fast their whole life, set in front of a television, put into peer pressure, put into this gold-based, regurgitation-based education system that isn't about education but about brainwashing, to where they can't even communicate. They can't even grasp the ideas we're talking about. They have no connection to the legendary struggle of humanity against oppression and tyranny, and just to have ideas and be able to have your own garden. In Japanese imperial oppression and under the shoguns, they had a feudalism where you could not grow plants for food unless it was authorized. You had to give a certain percentage. It was even more oppressive in Europe in the Dark Ages. You couldn't even have herbs or anything for people being sick, or they'd burn you at the stake saying it was witchcraft. There was a total oppression. The globalists describe at the Club of Rome in their 1960s publications that we covered in Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement, they describe in great detail a neo-feudalistic system they want to visit upon us. That's their word. So everything you see is a replay. Carbon taxes is a tax on all human activity, not about the environment. All of this is about total control. All over the country, you can't get a tax credit for putting in your own solar or your own wind. You've got to put it into their system. You see, they don't want you independent. They don't want us coming together as normal humans. You want to defeat the globalists? Start having your neighbors over to barbecue, no matter what color they are. You want to defeat the globalists? Starting a garden. Go to city council. Just see what's happening. Go to a homeless soup kitchen. See what's happening there. Go to a police event that's open to the public. Talk to the police. They don't want us interfacing with each other. They want us all just fighting with each other or going home and watching ESPN. Now, in closing, and then we're going to give you the new Jade Helm news and what's behind so much of this conversion of our military to a domestic force that's admitted. That's why we need to be supported. Spread the word about the broadcast. Facebook, after a massive backlash, restored our Facebook. They were also banned. They banned the lady up in Garland who put on the event. They banned her. After huge protest, her site was put back up. Regardless of what you think of her. That's her First Amendment. She loses the First Amendment, we lose it all. That's what this comes down to. We need your support. Spread the word about the broadcast. Tell your friends and family about it. The power of millions of people. Taking the link at Infowars.com/show with the free podcast, the audio streams, the video streams, the free apps, sending it to friends and family, putting it at the end of your emails or the top of your emails, putting it on Facebook, putting it on Twitter, putting it on YouTube, putting it on Pinterest, putting it on Craigslist. I've just started plugging this the last 3 weeks. We've more than tripled the amount of people just watching the video feed. What if you tell folks about your local AM and FM affiliates? What if you, in that geographic area, tell them about that affiliate, the call letters, and when we're on? This is the power you have. They're coming after us because, look at it. You type Infowars.com into Google. You click news. And there are conservatively 30, 40 articles and TV shows a day talking about it. You type in Infowars Jade Helm or Infowars Alex Jones, hundreds a day. And it's always new stuff we're breaking. We break the news about homeschoolers having their kids taken. It becomes national news, they get their kids back. We break the news about any issue. You heard Larry Pratt say today, thank God you're covering this, Alex. He's told me before off the air. Biggest response off this show. Bigger than the other hosts that are on 500 stations. We're on 170-something. Most of them small. Bigger than Glenn Beck. Bigger than Rush Limbaugh. Bigger than Sean Hannity. Let me be honest with you. I wish they would convert to liberty immediately and dwarf me. This is dangerous. I don't want to be at this level. Believe me. But I knew I had to get big or get destroyed, so I'm getting as big as I can in the face of these enemies so I can contend with them. That's what this comes down to. Okay, if I'm going to go and risk my life, I'm going to go all the way. So join us in that. We know the Pentagon's new main role domestically is that. That's over the top insane. Then Jade Helm comes along. We just say this should be watched. It lists these states as hostile. The John Warner Defense Authorization Act admits the military is preparing to put down legislative rebellions or to take out governors. That's in the news. We should watch this. They misrepresent, say that we say it's an imminent takeover. It's now one of the biggest stories the last month. It just gets bigger and bigger. They're calling it a firestorm. But it's admitted that the Pentagon is tracking everything we do, putting it into this Internet of Things, this map that tracks the whole world, and that creates a file on every American, and then files on regions and sub-regions of the country. And that's what David Knight and, of course, Rob Dew are here to talk about. We may have to do some overdrive today to get into all this. But, gentlemen, where should we start here?
Well, there's a ton of stuff on here. I think we should start with the C-SPAN clip. We broke that down a couple days ago, The Sleeping Giant Awakens on live TV. And there's one of the questions, someone calls in to talk to the colonel, who is head of the Asymmetrical Warfare Group. He's the commander of this, Colonel John Potosik. They say, hey, why don't you tell us about Jade Helm? We think it's a cool little exercise. You know, I know she was trying to bait the guy into an argument. He looks over. You see him look off screen, shake his head, and goes, I don't know anything about that. I mean, it's an amazing clip, and this was on C-SPAN Live.
And he's at Fort A.P. Hill, where Biggs and I were about a year ago.
He's in Fort A.P. Hill. They're doing the interview.
He knows all about it, but he knows nothing.
He knows nothing.
He's like a leading expert, but he knows nothing.
Well, he does the Sergeant Schultz defense, and I explained that in the clip. So let's go to that clip real quick.
Morning, Colonel. I wanted to alert our citizens and to get an explanation, if we could, for an exciting military training called Jade Helm 15, which is all over the internet. I guess it involves 10 states, and there's going to be civilians participating in
Didn't he have you detained?
towns like Big Spring, Texas.
Yeah, this is the guy.
He said you in jail.
Explain the magnitude of that and what the purpose of that is, and apparently you're going to have crisis actors, and they're going to be soldiers dressed in uniform and not in uniform, and apparently it's very exciting. Could you explain that to us? Yeah. Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, it's not something that I'm familiar with, so I can't really explain that. But I do know,
you know he's got a civilian handler right there.
Those types of things are things that we do here, where we get our soldiers the opportunity to work within an environment where there are civilians and soldiers. As a matter of fact, one of the things I could talk about is that, unfortunately, I just don't know about that particular exercise.
I see nothing. I know nothing.
The Army's plan for a multi-state training exercise this summer called Jade Helm 15. While the military says it's just training soldiers for the realities of war, critics say the Army is preparing for modern-day martial law.
Some are calling it a Texas takeover. What's happening is between July and September, a bunch of Green Berets, Navy SEALs, and Special Ops from the Air Force and Marines are conducting some realistic training exercises across the Southwest, including 17 different Texas cities.
Again, I'm sorry, I'm just not familiar with that exercise.
Oh, I see nothing. I was not here.
And that was a month ago.
I did not even get up this morning.
Yeah, he just said this a few days ago, and it's just been on every channel in the country. Now, let's stop. He even knew who you guys were when he had you detained.
Oh, yeah.
So this is just asinine.
Yeah.
Now, expanding on this, we're getting into part 2 of a video that's up on Infowars.com. Proof, Pentagon mapping U.S. for domestic insurgents, including libertarians, constitutionalists, and patriots. And what we're getting into is an event that's been happening for about 8 years. We've got some C-SPAN clips from 5 years ago. It's dominating the human domain analytics, and we get this from Trajectory Magazine. So you've got to go into the different Pentagon publications, the different trade publications to find this directly from them, what they're actually doing.
You know, Alex, when we look at this and we saw this, it's like, okay, here it comes again. We've been talking about all these different aspects of it. This is another exercise. It's bigger. They're increasing the scope. They're increasing the frequency. We were all surprised, I think, to see how this picked up, how Jade Helm picked up. But I think the thing is it's like the Snowden files. When you see the documents, when you see the slides, it hits with people. And they see this map.
That's what Louis Gohmert said. He said, I was in the Army as an officer. This is scary.
Did this.
And
he goes, I'm concerned about martial law.
That's just the tip of the iceberg, because what this is about, this is when they say mastering the human domain, when you look at that logo, human domain is a term of art of the military, just like unconventional warfare, just like asymmetric warfare.
It means the entire ecosystem, everybody.
Exactly.
It means slavery.
They are getting all this information about you as an individual, and as different groups, and they are mapping it onto a geographic layer.
It's full spectrum dominance.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's the logo right there, Master of the